Us, hello. Got a little bit caught up there. Hello. Oh, wait a sec. We'll give it a few seconds. Us, Fred. Thanks for coming. Sorry, I got a little delayed. It's a funny story. It could get noisy too because the us, Rochelle. The lawnmower man is doing the lawn. He's a couple of hours late. He got caught up. So I just had to just had to help him pull out his ride-on lawnmower out of a ditch, and to get to the garden, Torbjörn, he has to drive through my garage. So you can see the garage is all, the mats are all pulled up for him to drive through. So don't be surprised halfway through the live stream, you see a man on a mower drive straight through my house. Mike, I hope you're okay. I heard there's some pretty bad bushfires over your way from one extreme to the other. Paul, good to see you. Vince Lemontard, hello from Hong Kong. Vinny, Vinny, Vince Lemontard. Hello, mate. That's my good buddy Vince. Daniel, good to see you. Today I'm going to look at the Sokugi Taikyoku. Interesting kata. I say they're interesting because they, in my opinion, they're a separate category of kata. In that, what's Harry? In that these kata are, first of all, are unique to Kyokushin, and of course they've been recognized as the creation of Masayama. But I doubt that very much, simply because I'd say they're the creation of the Oyama Dojo, and what would have happened would be that a number of the students, Masayama would have said to them, and this is just speculation, but it makes a lot of sense. Masayama would have said to them, look, we need to develop, we need some kata for kicking, because all the basic kata are all punching. So let's get away from that. So I'd say what would have happened was you'd get, we do it at the dojo too. We'll say you break up into groups and come up with a bunkai for this or for that, okay? And I'd say what would happen, you have Nakamura Tadashi and Oyama Shigeru, Oyama Yasuhiko, and that group of high-level students would have got together and based these kata on the Taikyoku pattern. So that's why they're called Sokugi Taikyoku. Let me write that for you so it makes a lot of sense. I'll just open up my app. Here we go. So, it's going to be noisy. I'll do it. Okay, so that's Sokugi. And Sokugi literally means foot and technique, as in Shin, Gi, Tai. Sokugi, Ashi, Waza. So that literally means the foot technique kata. So I think it's really important, and I certainly teach this way, that this isn't a kata you want to go looking for some sort of deep explanation of bunkai and so on. It's not an advanced. It's not for advanced bunkai. Okay, it's not a fighting kata. It's a principle development or a principle training kata. So it's the whole idea is to develop the correct technique and principles for your kicks, and it's very good at that. But it has to be done correctly, and this is what I want to focus on today. Is I want to focus on one really key principle. The Matsushima group has a fourth Sokugi. Look, you know what? Give me a week, we'll have a fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. What's the point? There's no end to it. Let people do what they do. If they feel they need to do that to find their identity, good on them. If it works, great. And if the kata actually helps to develop skills, not a problem. But I certainly won't be teaching anymore. There's already too many kata in Kyokushin. We've got about 22 kata. If you add the extrapolations, particularly the Sokugi and the Ura kata, there's just too many kata as it is. You know, you're learning 2 kata a grading all the way up to black belt for a start. So by the time you do black belt, you're meant to be doing 20, 22 kata. It's too many. It's way too many. And this is why so many people in Kyokushin have trouble developing a high level of skill in kata. They've got too many. They just can't keep up. So I always believe the best thing you can do to work on your kata is work on 2 kata, and just 2. One is the kata you're currently working on, you're learning, and 2 is the kata that most is enjoyable to you and suits your mindset and personality, and that'll change over time too. Okay, so this is not an advanced bunkai kata. It's a kata that is designed to develop fundamental skill. Okay, so don't go looking for those deep bunkai in the kata. That's really important. It's not a fighting kata. You won't find the bunkai in it. So there's 3 Taikyoku, as we've just seen here. Some groups have a 4th, and that's fine, you know. But I think these 3 actually cover all you need for the key kicks. Actually, I think the first 2 cover all you need for the kicks, because the third one, which has the uchimawashi and sotomawashi, that where they normally are. Sorry, give me a sec. That's my wife, everybody. Yeah, just park it in the driveway here. Sorry, a lot going on in the house today. We've got a lot happening today. So the first Taikyoku is Kansetsugeri and Maikyage. The second one is, oh, here we go, look. We'll get the lawnmower man coming through. Hey. Live TV, yeah. Who needs the Kardashians? We've got it all happening. My wife's got to get to work. My car's in the way. Yeah, Vince, hello, Sack. She's got to get to work, and my car's in the way because they do what a party. Isn't that fun? Okay, so Kansetsugeri Maikyage for the first one. All said. Sivitri, good to see you. And the second one is Yokogeri and Maigeri. That's not important. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritty. The important thing is a fundamental that I call pocket. Okay, and that is simply learning to. Yeah, I had a haircut weeks ago. You're behind the times, Harry. I had it last week too. It was already cut last week. Look, the pocket principle is simply one of the simplest principles that you can work on. I used to have a kata for defense against a lawnmower, Mike, but it didn't work. It cost me my arm. No, not much you can do against one of those things. But it's good timing. He's quietened down now. He's turned it off. The pocket principle is simply this. And if you're an instructor and you teach this, your students will get an incredible improvement in their skills very, very quickly when it comes to kicks. And the pocket principle simply says, am I kicking out my front pocket or am I kicking out my back pocket? And that's all you need to remember. And when you apply that with the Sokugi Taikyoku kata, it makes a big difference and it will help you develop your kicking skills to a much better level. So let's see if we can look at that right now. Okay. So coming out the back pocket or the front pocket. So the problem is this. When we stand here and you want to kick to the side, we look to the side and what happens to the hip? The hip withdraws. So we end up doing the kick to the side out the front pocket. We go like that. And that's where all the problems begin. Simply, we can't, sometimes as an instructor, we can't analyze what's going wrong. If you think in terms of back pocket, front pocket, it's that simple. When I kick to the side, I want to kick out my back pocket. So it means instead of turning, withdrawing my hip, it means I look, but I turn this way, okay? And I kick out my back pocket. Now, when you do Kansetsu-geri or Yoko-geri, one of the things that I also see is when you turn and kick out the front pocket, my kicking knee leads towards the kick, and I do something like that. Okay, you want to build up the torque. You want to build up the tendon reflex or the stretch shorten cycle along here by tightening the hip flexors sharply, and that will stretch these muscles along here, the gluteus maximus and so on, that will extend the leg out. And by doing it sharply and bringing the knee not to the side and kick, but across like this. So now when you throw the kick, instead of going out there and throwing the kick, or if we're doing Kansetsu-geri like that, what we're going to do now is that. See that movement there? Instead of going here, which has its place, but to develop the skill of kicking out the back pocket, we want to bring the knee up like this. See that? Towards my center line. For the sake of training, you can actually do this. You can lean on something and work on bringing the knee to the shoulder. See, like that? So I come up there and I'm kicking out my back pocket. Like that. So when we do it in the kata, instead of going like this and then turning, we actually bring the knee towards the center line and elevate the knee as much as you can so you get that sharpness there. You see that? So by focusing not on the kick, but on which pocket I'm kicking from. I turn, there. That's the first move in the kata. Okay? It doesn't matter where the opponent is. If my opponent, and I'm getting in bunkai, I don't want it too much because it's not a bunkai kata, but the application of the movement is very practical. So now if I'm sparring someone here and they're in front of me and I want to use that kick, what I can do is switch. And look, that allows me now to expose my back pocket. So if I'm sparring, there, boom, moving like that, and I want to kick with a side kick, one of the things I can do is step up and poke my butt forward. Like that. Or I switch and change angles and kick like that. The key is, as you drill it and train it, you need to work on the idea of getting my back side into the kick, my back pocket, okay? So the kata, the arms are here. I throw the kick from the back pocket and turn into Zenkutsu. Where does the next kick come from? My kiage or my geri comes from the front pocket. So what I do is I roll, my hands stay here, I roll and step out. Now, once again, the third technique in this little flow is really, really solid for developing your back kick. Even though it's a side kick to the side, the same principle applies where I'm turning. And notice when I turn, I don't want to turn and expose my front pocket. I want to turn, but keep my back pocket exposed. You see that? So as I throw the third technique, see, the back pocket is already exposed. And if you watch my bottom foot, by turning it, keeping it turned away from the target, it allows my back pocket to gain that exposure. See that? So there, before I turn. Okay? So The key principle to the Taikyoku, Sokugi Taikyoku kata is back pocket, front pocket. Kick out the back pocket. And again, kick out the back pocket. I'm sorry, I'm doing Yokogeri, doesn't matter. And then, and once again, see when you come to this way, down the middle, again, your back pocket is exposed. There like that. A lot of people make the mistake of turning too much and exposing the front pocket. Now that principle applies throughout the kata, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, whenever you're throwing the kicks on, particularly on the even numbers. So, on the odd numbers. So you're moving into it. Yeah, have a word to Sensei Eric. I may have even mentioned it to him when he was coming through the ranks, but I may not have used the language. Yeah, he does. We were talking about Filio just the other night because I remember working with Filio's instructor, who was Ademir da Costa, and he was explaining a similar thing. So you're right, actually. That's true. So anyway, I'm just reading the notes if you want to know what I'm doing. So this principle works really well. The next principle that it really helps you with is maintaining good control of your centrifugal force and everything, because you're turning so sharply, and then when you throw the kick away from your center, it'll pull your center. And this particularly becomes Isobe Shihan, of course, was the branch chief, and he was the instructor of them all, but Filio's primary teacher when he was young was Ademir da Costa, Vince. Of course, Isobe, but Ademir da Costa left the Matsui group, left Kyokushin, started his own style. So, of course, they don't like to talk about him too much. But well, that's interesting too. Taniha Shitoryu. It's funny you mentioned Taniha Shitoryu. I tried to study Kimura Sensei's movements, Mike. I really loved the Taniha Shitoryu principles. I love their stuff. I just didn't have an opportunity to train with them, so I was just the blind. For me, it was just the blind leading the blind. But the Taniha Shitoryu is really beautiful. They have some good stuff. Seiwa Kai is Ademir's style. So anyway, the principle really holds well, and I wanted to segue from Taikyoku Kata into the way that I teach a back kick, which was primarily influenced by Benny the Jet, would you believe? I first trained with Benny the Jet in 1980, and I took away a lot of things, and his principles of footwork and movement had a strong influence on my own thinking for the fighters. But anyway, let's just have a look at a couple more things here. So remember that principle, back pocket, front pocket. I wonder, can I... Now that the lawnmower man's gone, I'll tidy up everything else later on. There you go. So, we're looking at back. Just think of one thing when you throw a kick. Am I kicking back pocket or front pocket? From here, Sokugi Taikyoku Sonoichi, Kansetsu, we look, we keep this foot turned as it is, and we kick out the back pocket. 1. Maikiage. 2. Again, we keep the back pocket exposed. Excuse that kick. My knee's bad, and sometimes I kick it out of joint. There, and then down the middle again. See, look, I'm trying to push my butt into it. And when I throw the kick, look at my leg. It doesn't go here. See that? I don't start here, turn there, and kick. It actually goes here, that way. So my knee comes up, there. Like that. Okay? Mai kyage. And you continue on. You've done 3 of those. When you turn that way again, you're turning and exposing your back pocket. Like that. Mai kyage. Again, expose the back pocket. Got a rickety old right concept there. Okay, so each time you do it, you expose the back pocket. Now, how do we translate that into the back kick? And I think if you take away 2 things today, one is the front pocket, back pocket principle. That will change the way you teach your students how to kick. And the other one is the way I work on the back kick. Okay, so the first thing I do for the back kick is I distract. So I'm moving and I'm distracting. So I want to distract and pull that hand back. Most of the time, if you ask people which leg is the weight on in a kick, they will always say the supporting leg. And it makes sense, it's logical. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to increase the power in a kick, you need to work on keeping the weight in the kicking leg. Sounds a little bit funky, but the fact is, if you can do that, it will increase the power of your kick because it puts your body weight into the kick. And one of the best principles of teaching that you can do is whenever you teach people to kick with power, get their head to go towards the target. So when I teach people to throw a kick, it may be the stomp turn and I'm throwing a body roundhouse kick. Watch my head. I never go here and let the head come back, which is often what happens when you're punching a bag because the bag's always in the same spot. So, boom, I'm doing this, moving around, and see my head kind of stays where it is. What you want to do is develop the idea of taking the head towards the target. Boom, so you fall into the target. So I'm moving, throwing the kicks, switch, and I want my head to go towards the target. You develop that habit, then you can control it, but that increases the weight in the kick. Well, you think about that in the back kick now. One of the things with the back kick, and I'll do it from the side so you can see, the thing people make, there's 2 mistakes they make. One is they put all the weight on the supporting leg, so when they throw the kick, it's just a matter of speed, not body weight in the kick. Speed's good, but for the back kick, it's a penetration kick. It's not a snap mawashi-geri. You can snap mawashi-geri, have no weight in it, and knock someone out cold because it's like a jab. Okay, it's like a jab as opposed to a rip. A body rip penetrates in towards the spine. A jab, it's just an impulse thing. Bang! It's really sharp. Well, it's the same with the back kick. You need to penetrate through. So what you're going to do here, I'm distracting. I withdraw my hand. Now, I'm kicking with the right leg. You notice all my weight's on my right leg. I don't want to throw and then bring the weight to the support leg so I can lift that up. That's a sure way to rob your kick of all the possible power. Okay, I need to keep the weight on the back leg, on the kicking leg. See that? The other thing that I'm doing, you can see if I turn around and do it, here, my weight's on this leg, but you see I've torqued my shoulder. I'm building up the torque between this shoulder and the back knee. And that's what's going to allow the kick to come through sharply. The problem is, if I overbake it, I can lose control of my centrifugal force, which happened to be in the 1980 National Championships of Australia. If you see the video, I threw a kick, did 2 somersaults and fell off the stage. It was very funny. Well, it wasn't funny to me. But you need to control that centrifugal force, and the way you do that is with a counter movement. So as I throw the kick now, see my arm. Watch my arm. I'm countering. I'm building the torque from here to here, and then I throw the kick by keeping the weight on the kicking leg, and it allows me to come back with good control over what's happening. Okay. The next thing that's dangerous is I turn around. So a lot of people will do a back kick like this. They'll go kick, turn, back to here. Throw a back kick. You go, one, ready, pitch. And back to here. It's the number one no-no. Why? Because if I'm here and I throw the kick, it means I'm in kicking range, which means he's in kicking range. So I throw the kick, I take my eyes off my opponent, I kick, and then I come back to here and I get knocked out. Never stop in the dead zone. The difference is this. You can see that because if you align my head on the camera and then I throw that kick, see how it's roughly where it was before. Watch what I do when I do the kick correctly, the way I teach it anyway. I go 1, 2, I'll get that torque. 1, look at my head, how far I am out of range by the time I shape up to my opponent. And that also allows me to change angles and get out of the dead zone if I want. So I'm here, I distract, spin, get that torque, throw that kick, put that foot down. And from there, I can step there, I can step here, I can step anywhere I want before I get out of the dead zone. So I've got a line here. You may not be able to see it, but let me go back to here. My imaginary opponent is there. I'm going to flick in the face, spin, whoops, spin. Get the shoulder torque, and I counter the kick with my shoulder and elbow. Okay, I used to teach it with the arm, just so they get the idea of one arm going one way, one leg going the other. But now you can do the same thing with the elbow and shoulder. I'm here, kick, replace. I don't stay there. I get on my bike, I get over there, get over here, anywhere you want, and I get out of range. So now, look, I'm a whole meter further back than what I was when I threw the kick, as opposed to throwing the kick, staying on the spot. I'm in exactly the same position, which puts me in a vulnerable place because I'm still in my opponent's dead zone. I call it that it's my dead zone because I'm dead in the water. It's his dead zone because if I stay there, I'm dead. Okay? So let's look at this in terms of pocket, front pocket, back pocket. I want to kick the back kick, obviously, out the back pocket. So I'm torquing my shoulder and my back knee. Here's my back pocket. I'm going to kick straight back. I don't want to spin. A lot of people turn a back kick into a side kick. They turn too far and kick out the front pocket. See that? They go from here, they throw the kick like that. It's out the front pocket. There's only one place you can go, and that's to get in trouble. And it's very hard to counter that centrifugal force this way. You want to kick out the back pocket, control the momentum, which I didn't do then, control the momentum with the counter movement of the arm. There, you should be able to come back with perfect control. I'm going to step off. I'm still looking at my opponent. I don't take my eyes off. That's the other thing you never want to do, is kick here, boom, and then go back the other way again. You take your eye off your opponent twice, you double the chance of being hit without knowing. I only ever take your eyes off your opponent once, and that is here, bang. For a split second, my eyes off my opponent. Now it's back on my opponent, and I don't take it off him again. Once. Once is bad enough. I'm looking at him. Notice, I'll throw the kick. I'm still looking at him. I still move away. I'm still looking at him. And I'm out of range. So don't fall into the trap of kicking and then coming back the direction you came from. That's not a good idea. It's as bad as kicking and stopping on the spot. Okay? Taikyoku, Sokugi teaches you the importance of getting the head into the kick. Just as here, I use my body weight by keeping it in my kicking leg. See, my head will go forward there. That's how it should be. But I counter that movement with my arm to stop it. Oh, still got a little bit. To stop that momentum. That's because I'm looking at the camera. There. See that? Step off and around. Okay? Sokugi kata, it teaches you the importance of stepping into the kick. We start here. I bring my knee in and up. and I step into the kick. My kyage, again, my head is here. I'm going to do exactly that same back kick, but I'm stepping into it. Remember, it's a training kata. It teaches you the importance of body weight, see that, in the kick. I need to get my head forward into the kick. There. Look, my butt. Step in. 3 of those. Once again, now I'm turning this way, so I need to get my butt into the kick. Get the butt around. Okay, this is a really good kata for developing your kicks if you're a kicking stylist, if you like the idea of good kicks. 1, there. 2, I'm just out of range, I know. Again, I want to keep my butt pointing towards the kick. Okay? So Gary's Shidomoshi is a back pocket with the hip extended. Gary's Shidomoshi, it began there, Torbjörn. Yes, it began. Hey, Ruddy, good to see you. It began with this principle, front pocket, back pocket. So what he will do is if you can analyze the video, Torbjörn, if you get a chance, slow it right down, you'll see when he throws the kick, even though it's a spin 360 sort of kick, he doesn't overextend. So his back pocket is essentially always facing the opponent. The only time that the back pocket will come is after the kick is finished and he's usually recovering back this way, either on his feet or, because the kick is a sacrifice kick on the ground. Just looking for a little towel. Oh, here's one. So good question, Torbjörn. Yep. But this is the beginning of those kicks because it obeys a few principles. The first principle is talking, pointing the butt and talking the kick, getting the build-up of the arc of tension. The second principle is the weight continues with the head. That was a very important point that Gary developed between the 6th World Tournament and the 27th All Japan, I think, where he came second. So important point. Yeah. Hey, Chrissy, didn't see you there. Chrissy, by the way, gets this back pocket, front pocket principle down really well. For all the Sokugi kata, can I just do it with Hanzen? 100%, Vin. That's a good point. Zen Kutsudachi, any stance that extends your stance beyond your knees capability, you should shorten. And that's basically for over 50s. So I can do a really good Zenkutsu one side and it's impossible for me to do it the other because I have no knee. So what you do is 100%, Vinny, just shorten it. Cut it into half Zenkutsu Dachi. Or do I have to do it with Zenkutsu? No, you don't. Yeah, well, look, for the kata's sake, it's always, if you don't have problems with your legs, Vin, for the kata's sake, try to extend your legs because that teaches you to drive off the back leg, the ankle extension. That's a little bit of extra. That little ankle extension is very important. If you don't have problem with your legs, then try to do it from there, but do the both. Shorten it up into your fighting stance. So you end up doing this, Vin. This is a really good way too. So I'm here like this. Boom. I'm fighting. Boom. And then I'm throwing the kick like that. Boom. Boom. You throw the kick, and you can do that. There's no reason why you don't practice like that. Boom. Throw the kick. Throw the kick. Throw the kick. Throw the kick. You can do that all day long. This is one of the things that Ashihara karate tended to do is they got away from those formalized stances, I think to their detriment in the long run, but they've also produced some beautiful karate. So a lot of their kata are simply principles of movement of Kyokushin plus Aikido combined with a fighting stance rather than the formal stances. You know, like Bruce Lee says, don't get caught up in the classical mess. That's a fair call. But at the same time, a foundation of the classics is really important. If you think about some of the greatest rock and roll musicians or jazz musicians the world's ever known, their foundation was in classical music, because that's what gave them the key foundations to make everything they did after that work so well. And I think that's really, really important. Whilst Bruce Lee said, don't get caught up in the classical mess, I think a foundation in those classics allows you to play with principles and movements much, much better. Yeah, so you do both, Vince. Do both. Just like I did then, play around like you're in a fighting stance. Harry, also, do you think that one can achieve the same by leaning over into the kick? You can step out of the dead zone, but the step is always determined by the center of gravity, leaning over in the kick to gain power. You have to experiment with that, I reckon, Harry. I'd have to see you do it. If you're coming to the training tomorrow morning, or if you're training, I know you said you're going to come up to the mountain at some stage, but if you do, let's look at that. The idea of, you don't want to lean too much though, because the problem with leaning, if anyone ever saw Zab Judah fight Costa Tszyu, great boxing match. Zab Judah, Costa Tszyu is the Russian kid who migrated to Australia after the Sydney Olympics. Check that fight out. But Costa Tszyu said he just noticed that Zab Judah's defense was a little over-exaggerated, because the further he went away, the further he had to come back. So all he did was threw a jab and then waited for him to come back. Okay, so leaning has its place, but over-leaning, just like anything, is a detrimental thing. Hey, Ben, good to see you. You joined our group, didn't you? Our local Gold Coast Kyokushin, Kyokushin has a black belt training group. So the black belts get together, and Ben Tipper there is one of my black belts from the past. He came all the way from Western Australia and never went home. Not in kata, but in kicking in general, can you talk about arm swings in Yoko versus Mawashi? Sure. Let's look at that briefly, Rudd. Okay, so the important thing is 80-20. Everything is determined by 80-20. Now, by 80-20, I don't just mean 20% of the techniques gives you 80% of the usable skills. 80-20, I mean optimal as opposed to maximal. Does that make sense, Rudd? Optimal as opposed to maximal. You don't want to generate maximal power in a kick if it overbakes you and you're unable to protect yourself for what comes next. What you want to do is generate optimal power in the kick. And that means at all times, a little bit of what you're doing is in a defensive shape. So we call the Cox combs. So let's look at that. So for side kick, because I'm kicking out my back pocket, Rudd, my side kick protects with my arm and shoulder here. So see that? If I'm there, see how my shoulder protects my jaw there. And the beauty of that side kick shape is if someone throws a roundhouse kick, I can always fade my back leg, boom, and I can duck out of the way or move out of the way. Okay, the danger, of course, is the thigh kick. So that's why you don't see Kyokushin guys fighting like this, because of the thigh kick. If there was headshots in Kyokushin, I think you'd see more of this, because you can suck people in. You can suck people in. They think, oh, there's a big chance for a bet. They throw the kick, you hit them with a jab, you hit them with a back fist in the face. That's very effective. But generally speaking, Kyokushin needs your leg straight so that you can move your leg to defend the attack. Now, in terms of your hands, so for the side kick, you want to get the power and the torque from the knee. In most kicks, that's not a bad principle. But I don't want to depend on the arms. So when I throw the side kick, I want to bring this hand so that my elbow protects my ribs and my solar plexus on the open side. It's no good if, see here, is one thing. But when I turn my body, now I'm exposing my body to my opponent. So I need to make sure that it doesn't matter. If that's my angle, that's one thing. Look, if I turn, my arm still basically stays where it is in space. So if I'm fighting there, if I turn, I can drop it down a little bit because now it's in the line of flight from my opponent's kicks. But if I leave it there, when I turn, look what happens. I'm exposed now. I can't afford that. So when I turn, I bring that arm forward. Now for the side kick, that's what you're doing. I'm here like this. Maybe I'm stepping up. We practice a side kick in 3 ways. We'll step in front, we'll step behind, and we'll step like a T. See, like that? We'll step there. So we'll step in front, side kick, step behind, side kick. You notice my arms hardly move, right? I keep this one in front of my kidney on this side, in front of my spleen, and this on in front of the floating ribs. My shoulder protects my jaw, so if the kick does come, it's not going to get me on the neck. And this hand is around protecting from this side in a coxcomb sort of position. So there, like this, I step straight up to there, or I step behind there. So I can be moving, sparring, boom, throw a fake into their face, step up, step behind, throw a fake, step up, step behind. The one in front is tricky because what I can do is switch, throw a roundhouse kick, switch, throw a roundhouse kick, switch, throw a side kick and catch them off guard. So for the side kick, Rudd, there isn't much arm movement at all. It's a protective thing. So I'm going to step up. My arms will hardly move. There. Okay? For a roundhouse kick, the same thing, except I whip my arms into the defensive position. So now I go 1, boom. See, my arm again comes to the opposite side in coxcomb. This arm comes so that my shoulder protects my jaw and neck, and I basically relax that so it's facing towards my opponent. So from here, for a roundhouse kick, 1, 2, I'll build up the torque. See, this knee's going that way, but this shoulder's going this way. So I'm building up the torque. 1, 2. Now as I swing, this arm whips into the coxcomb. This arm whips into the shoulder protection. From some 1, there like that. Just let this arm, I tell the kids to point at the opponent's, point at the target. There's a beautiful image of Mickey Varka in the final of the 1980 Nationals where he pointed at the target. He went, yeah, look, that's where I'm kicking. And then he kicked him in the head. So you can use that to your advantage too. So the arm movement in roundhouse kick and the arm movement in the side kick are very different because of the nature of the kick. I'm sure you worked that out, Rudd. I hope that kind of addresses what you were getting at. When we were taught the Sokugi kata, we learned to transfer from Zen Kutsudachi into Tsuruashi Dachi as a defense stance before the side kicks were thrown. No, don't worry about that, because if you withdraw the knee, just think of the knee withdrawing, Torbjörn. It does the same sort of thing. I think whoever was teaching that was kind of on the right thing. They probably just hadn't thought it through. So the idea of going from here, withdrawing into Tsuruashi Dachi, but the problem with Tsuruashi Dachi is watch my knee. They come here, they withdraw to, and look, the knee's out there. My front pocket is facing that way now, not my back pocket. I need to get my back pocket, so my Tsuruashi Dachi would be like that. And if you tell yourself you're doing a Tsuruashi Dachi, you would do it wrong. You go like that, and then try and flick it. There's no power in it. There's zero power. But if you think, like all stances, there's very few stances that aren't transitional stances. There's some stances, foundation default stances. There, sometimes a kokutsu can be like that, but most stances are transitional. So I'm going to transition. Well, Tsuruashi Dachi is definitely a transition. You never want to stop in Tsuruashi Dachi. What you do is you transition through it, and then you'll get the power. So I'm here, and now what I'm doing is I think, take my knee to my shoulder. If it doesn't get there, it doesn't matter. It's the building of the torque that counts. See the knee coming up that way as opposed to this way. I don't want to lift it here and kick. Sometimes it can give the impression that it's good and sharp, it feels good. And sometimes that can do a good job. You're catching somebody, bang, catch them right on the knee. But if you really want it to be a sharp, overwhelmingly strong kick, you torque like that. And that's how you get effectiveness. The first one is just like a tap, tap, jab to keep them distance before you load the right cross. Well, this one is the right cross. It's a knockout punch with your front hand. Chris, Gary is so good at not changing his upper body shape for all his kicks. Very hard to pick up his kicks early, yes. And hard to pick his punches up early too because he didn't change his shape during the punch. The only time you'll see really a big change in his body shape is when the punch is already on, when the punch is landing. Yeah, you can use tencho cover to pull in, very definitely. In fact, probably the first time I ever learned the side kick, Frank had us doing that, where we'd come in and grab their arm and pull in. And that has some good self-defense application. It can also lead to disaster if it's done wrong, but yes. So look, that's really what I wanted to address. I didn't even get through doing the whole kata. The first one is kansetsugeri, maikyage. The second one, of course, is yokogeri and maegeri. Okay, so yokogeri, maegeri. Okay, the principle of the front pocket, back pocket remains the same. It doesn't change at all. So the key that we need to look at is front pocket, back pocket, and the kata teaches you to get your head going into the target, which is a teaching Chrissy Dunn will tell you. It's one of the principles we always work on. When you throw the kick, you want to make sure that your head is going to the target. Fix it up later when you're doing kumite, of course. You don't want to walk in there and go like that. But the whole idea is you want that body weight moving forward all the time. And then you combine that with the back kick. So now I'm keeping my weight on the kicking leg. 1, 2. See that? All my weight is on the kicking leg. And to drill it with students, you can do it like this. 1, drop the knee down. 2, and point. That's your intermediate position. And then from there, what they do is they come up, throw the kick, pump the hand, and step out. And you'll notice a very significant counter to the centrifugal force with that arm coming back. Watch what happens. I'll throw it a little bit harder. 1. If I want to do it that way, or that way. But notice how it stops my momentum. Now watch what happens. All I'm going to do is keep my hand here so I can't use it to counter the force. So now I do exactly the same thing, but I don't move my arm. My body weight will go into the kick. Nothing wrong with that. The counter of the arm allows your body weight to go in the kick, but it doesn't, it stops you from falling into their dead zone. Okay, so I leave the arm here. 1. See, if I don't, I'm kind of doing it because I've been doing it for so long, my body still does the counter movement. But if I tell myself not to do it, see, that's what happens. It'll pull you in. So that's why you use the arm. 1, 2, counter. And then when I throw the kick, pull the arm back, and that stops your momentum. And I step right away out of range. It's a really valuable back kick drill, and it's born out of doing the Taikyoku out the back pocket with the side kicks. Any questions, let me know. Whilst I've got you, thank you very much to the Patreon family. You're keeping me alive, and things are only getting worse because, as you know, I'm a flight attendant, and it doesn't look like I'll be going back to work. within the next year or so, and our government-sponsored funding stops this next month. So if you love what I pass on to you and you're not part of the Patreon family, by all means, join in the party, go and have a look. And I really, really appreciate all that. I think this is the link. I think that's the correct link. But anyway, Patreon family, thank you very much. You're really making it possible. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting area, Mike. That the more I get, the older I get, the more I realize how important it is to use that talk. By talk, I tend to think leveraging more of my body against less of theirs. And as you get older, anyone who's over 50 knows, your body goes on a fairly undeniable decline in physical strength. So what you used to get away with before, simply because of physicality, you can't do that anymore. So that's why leverage becomes important. So that's why maybe before you just do a little block like this, but now as you get older, you're learning to make sure you're using the entire body and talking and building up, building up power. It allows you to be relaxed still. I think actually, not that I disagree. I agree with you, but I think the talk requires relaxation. I wouldn't even say that the relaxation allows you, or it allows you to be relaxed and to deliver strong technique. I think if you're not relaxed, so I would say it requires you to be relaxed, and you can still deliver that strong technique. But the words are the key. Chris, thanks for joining in. So anyway, there you have it, folks. Appreciate it. If you got any questions, by all means, drop me a message. Hey, Patty, you snuck in there. I didn't even see you. Didn't realize you were there. I hope everything's going well. Thank you again. By all means, like I said, drop a message. The book, great news about the book. The printer has sent me a series of photos. I don't think I can access them and show you. But anyway, he's sent me a series of photos of the book, all packed up on the pallets. He's sending me bill of lading and loading numbers. So the books are on their way. I know that Chinese New Year is the 12th. So they're getting them. They're all on the wharves. The books are on the wharves. It's just now up to the shipping company to get them off the wharves and on the ships before Chinese New Year. But the ships going, there's shipments going overland to Europe. There's shipments going by sea to Europe, and there's shipments going by sea to Australia, New Zealand, and North America. That's all good news. It means the books it's just a matter of time now. We wait for them to be delivered. The downside is that some countries have very strict quarantine in place due to the COVID, especially with anything coming out of Hong Kong or any of China or any of that area. So it means some countries, and that's particularly Canada, Sweden, and Holland, will be delayed because the packages can't leave. They're not allowed to leave the wharves because they won't. If they arrive in those countries, they'll be turned around and sent back. So they just have to wait till they have the clearance. But anyway, that's good news. Thanks, Frederick. I'll be in touch. I've got that little group of distributors, and we'll be working through a few things over the next month or so. Bill, good to see you, man. Rochelle, thanks for coming. Mike, thank you. I really appreciate your presence all the time. Stig, thank you. Matusz Podlaski. Tag, dzień dobry. Paul Kniep aus Deutschland. Good, danke schön, mein Freund. Paul Higginson from Australia. Thanks, man. Supriyo Datta. Shukriya. Namaste. Marco, good on you, mate. Thanks, Torbjörn. Just raid the customs warehouses. Good on you. Fred, Harry. Thank you, everyone. Us, see you next week. And I hope you have a safe week. Thank you, Us. Bye.